Ireland ring the changes as they welcome Italy to Dublin. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. So first up, just apologies for my voice and my throat in this one. Of course, I've got my first week on end off in ages, and I'm getting a dose, so going to be a great weekend off, I think. But rugby's definitely going to pick me up. I'm just going to be drinking lots of hot tea, I think. Or my dad he always swore by honey and lemon. Anything that was wrong with you, my dad would say, you'd have to drink the honey and lemon. It didn't matter what it was. But, in fairness now, it helped a bit. It never cured anything, but it certainly helped to ease the symptoms. But, this game, so we got Ireland, they're home. If anybody is predicting Italy to win, people are going to think they're crazy in this one. But that doesn't mean that Italy can't win. Now, do I think they're going to? Well, we find out that at the end, but you probably have a fair idea already about that. But what I think this is about really is, the changes between last year and this year. That's, I think, what we're going to see with both of these teams, because I think both of them have actually, from what we saw in the first round, have actually advanced from last season. So it's going to be interesting to see how they match up to each other. But this game, it's Ireland v Italy. It's on Sunday, 11th of February, 2024. Kickoff is 3 p.m. BST. Just add on or subtract for your own time zone. It's in the Aviva Stadium in Dublin. Last year it was Italy 20, Ireland 34. So, in the end score, pretty close. Like, Ireland had to work for the victory, and Italy do that a lot actually against Ireland. Like, we ring changes, but we very rarely, the second team very rarely steps up and hammers them. That's credit to Italy. But also, with Ireland as well, it kind of tells you a little bit that maybe the depth that we think is there is not quite there. But I think it's a mix of both. Like, Italy are a very, very good team. So we're going to have a rundown through the teams, and then we are going to talk a bit more in depth about each of the teams. So starting with Ireland, front row, Porter, Sheehan, Bealham. Then the second row, McCarthy and Ryan. Back row, Baird, Doris and Conan. Halfbacks, Casey and Crowley. The centres, McCluskey and Henshaw. And then the back three, Lowe, Nash and Keenan. On to then the Italy team. So you got starting with the front row. So at least these two are kind of following the same numbering or order, should I say. As I said before, we don't see that very often with these teams that are published. But Italy's front row, Fischetti, Lucchesi and Cesarelli. Then second row is Canoni and Ruzza. The back row is Isakor, Zulani and Lamaro. Halfbacks, Barney and Garbisi. Then centres, Menoncello and Brex. Wings, Ioani and Pani. And then fullback is Capozzo. Okay, and then let's have a look at their bench. So we got Nicotera, Spagnoli, Zalocci, Zambonin, Vincent, Page Raylo and Allen, and then Mori. So two, fairly strong sides there. We're going to dig into both of those sides now. We're going to start with Ireland. So the front row, like, you got Porter, Sheehan, Bealham. I kind of expected, I suppose you can't change the entire team, right? But I expected the front row maybe, we might have had Kelleher getting a start and, possibly having like Stewart on the bench. Just because for me, if a player is in your squad, he's there with the intention that he's going to feature at some point. I know for like young players, it can be good for them to be around the environment and etc. But if a player can get on for 10 or 15 minutes in a Six Nation game this year ahead of maybe stepping up next year or even the year after. That's so much better than everything else they're going to get in the camp. I'm not saying they're going to learn, they're not going to learn anything in the camp. They're going to learn a ton in the camp and improve the game. Obviously they are, especially being around, you know, the guys that are ahead of them and seeing how they prepare, you know, how they train, what they kind of focus on and that kind of stuff, and picking up little tips or just chats with them and that kind of stuff. But getting out on that field and then tasting it, you know, the Six Nations is, you know, just something so much extra on top of that as well. They're still going to get all of the stuff that they get in the camp, but get them out there for 10 or 15 minutes, wherever it is, and let them taste it. So, you know, I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more rotation with our front row players, but you've got to, at the same time, you've got to respect Italy. You know, we have depth in Ireland, but it doesn't mean that we can disrespect them and change our entire team. So obviously some players had to stay, some players had to take a rest. But and then when you're thinking, well, if Sheehan is starting and Kelleher only come off the bench last time, well, then Kelleher probably does have to be on the bench. But Porter, I said, you know, after last week's game, probably the best I've seen him play, not just for Ireland but for Leinster as well, since the series win in New Zealand. You know, I thought he's been out of form for much of that time since then, and you know, is starting to come back into the form. He's having the impact. You know, his set piece is going well, which, you know, as a front rower really is a big mental G up, and then he's having the impact that we've seen him before around the park as well, especially at the breakdown. So that's good to see, and long may that continue. Sheehan, the guy's just electric. Like he's basically like the Keith Wood of this generation, really. You know, he has the ability or the handling of a back, that lovely offloading game, and a threat for a try, but also, you know, he's learned his trade in terms of improving as a hooker, and that's good to see. And, you know, I talked about how before the Six Nations that it's, you know, a lot of it is on the hookers in terms of getting the line out right, even though, you know, the caller, the lifters, etc., all play a part. At the end of the day, if the hooker is, you know, not accurate, what the other guys doing their job well doesn't matter. Okay, when the hooker does his job well, even like, you know, and not the best lift in the world, you can still get the ball. But if it's a crooked throw, you know, straight away you've lost possession. So that guy, like, you know, he's an amazing player, and he's going to have impact in this game as well. Whether it's going to be, you know, at the back of a maul and going over, or in the loose where we see him, you know, be that link player and coming in and supporting breaks as well. Probably a bit of both. Bealham, and great to see him getting a start. I still think that in last year's Six Nations for Ireland, he was the best prop that we had in terms of consistency over the entire tournament. Maybe not in the same form for Connacht this year, but you know, he's earned his credit in the bank for Ireland, and it's nice to see him in there and getting a start. And I'm happy to see himself and Furlong kind of share the load starting as well, because Furlong, he's working his way back to form. We can see that, you know, his performances are improving, but having that, just that little bit of competition between them, or even just the fact that it's not all on his shoulders, I think that's going to be good for both of these players and for Ireland. Second row then, Joe McCarthy, such a sensational you know, impact for Ireland last week. You know, he's so good. Just his not just, you know, the physicality obviously there, but his work rate as well. And, you know, it really is good to see. You got James Ryan in there, talk about work rate. Like this guy, you know, he's a big part of why Leinster and Ireland's ruck speed is so quick, because he gets in there doing all the dirty work, like clearing out and stuff like that, making sure that ball comes back as quickly as possible. And we're going to see that as well in this one. And I was kind of wondering whether, you know, they would maybe shift Byrne back to the to the back row to accommodate Ryan starting. But we've got Bird starting as well. He's got all the flash stuff, the highlight reel for, this guy is amazing. He's got great pace and he's got an eye for a try as well. And, he can be an elusive runner along with that pace too. But in the last year, I've seen him kind of adding more of the bread and butter stuff to his game, doing that kind of unseen work that the likes of Ryan do, and making sure that he's having impact at rucks and stuff like that. And, that's good to see. We don't need to lose all the flash stuff that he does. We just need to see more of the bread and butter stuff as well on top of that. And I think this is going to be, a game where, he's got a great chance to show that he is a genuine option as a starter. Not necessarily I don't think he's going to bump the captain out of a spot or anything like that, but just the kind of thing where, you want to feel like the players who are on the fringe of starting really can come in and step up, that it's not going to be a downgrade when they come on. And I think, Bird is getting to that point now. Still a little bit more work to do, especially at test level, but I liked where he's progressing. Doris, he was quiet to start the season. Then when we kind of got around Champions Cup time, we could see that suddenly he's finding space where he wasn't. He was making extra yards as well. He seems to have put a bit more of, footwork on his game as well. So not just, accepting the contact straight away, trying to avoid it, and then drive, when he does go into contact, driving through the contact and still making yards after the hit. And, that's great to see. And it's lovely to see that he is the captain as well for this, and I think it's well deserved because of how he's played over the last few years for Ireland. Then you got Jack Conan there at 8, obviously with Doris switching out from 8 to 7. So Conan, he just have lovely hands. He's got great offloading skills as well, and great impact in his carries too. So when Ireland are on the front foot, this guy is going to be there, involved in everything as well. So a decent pack to start. Then the halfbacks, we got Casey and Crowley. The two of them know each other from Munster, obviously. So there's going to be no kind of getting to know you period for these two guys. Casey definitely deserves his start. I was a bit worried that maybe we would plug for Murray rather than for him, but it's good to see that he is getting a start in this one, and I hope he goes well. Because I'm not a Leinster fan. When it comes to Ireland, I'm an Ireland fan, and I don't give a shit what colour jersey you play for when you're playing for your province. When you're playing for Ireland, you're wearing the green, and it's all one team. So if Casey is there as a number 9, then I want him to do well. I'm not one of these guys who thinks, well, if he does well, then maybe Gibson Park is under pressure and blah, blah. I want Gibson Park to be under pressure. I want every player in our team to be under pressure, because the guy who is next in line is chomping at the bit to take that jersey off your back. And if you don't perform, then you could be the guy sitting on the bench, or you could be the guy sitting in the stands. I think that's how Ireland drive their standards. I'm not saying we should chop and change our team every week just because one guy had a slightly better game than the other, but I'm saying that there should be genuine competition in the team, and if somebody does have a different form that lasts for more than a couple of games, then the next guy should be there to step in and take that jersey and then say, well, now it's my jersey, now you have to win it back. And that's what I like to see. That's why I want to see these guys like that are coming in doing well. Crowley at 10, we talked about, had a really good game against France. It wasn't perfect. It's almost like a catchphrase now for Crowley, right, for his performance. But there's room for improvement, and he's just going to get better and better the more he is at this level. Doesn't mean he's not going to have the odd bad game, because that's part of getting better, right? Is that you learn from your mistakes, and poor options that he took, like last time, maybe a couple of kicks that shouldn't have gone or wherever, or where he put them. But he knows that now, and he's going to look at maybe other options that he has in those scenarios as well. So very happy with the 9-10 combination there. I would have liked to have seen maybe, you know, Harry Byrne or Frawley getting a start at 10, and just have them be with Casey and see how that combination goes, because, you know, they're from different provinces. But I can see why Crowley would get this, because, you know, he's new to being like the starting 10 for Ireland, and basically being, you know, one of the players that the whole nation's hopes are draped around his shoulders, that it makes sense to kind of keep him consistently in the team if you can. Centres then, McCluskey and Henshaw. Really nice to see these two get a game together. I still think, you know, when it comes to the crunch, Aki's probably going to come back into the team just because of the, you know, the last year or so that he's played. Like, he's just been sensational. But I thought McCluskey had, you know, some great performances in last year's Six Nations, and just the fact that, you know, he has three genuinely world-class centres ahead of him is probably the only reason why he doesn't get more minutes for Ireland. So it's nice to see him get a start in this one, and it'd be nice to see how these two go together as a combination as well, because, you know, Henshaw has been out for a while. He's come back in. We're seeing him, you know, get back up to levels that we've seen him in the past as well. So I want to see these two guys going well together too. You know, both of them can be direct and they can carry hard, and both of them have decent passing and offloading games as well. So there's some nice options there for us. Then the wings, we've got Lowe on the left wing. I was kind of wondering whether, you know, someone like Stockdale might get a shot in this game, but again, you have to keep a little bit of consistency in your team. You can't just change everyone. And looking at the others that were changed, maybe, you know, well, obviously the right choices were made, I think, at least, but you know, Lowe there on that left wing, his boot is such a great asset for us, because he can just, you know, take us from inside our own 22 up to the halfway line or just over with a clearance kick, and then just relieve so much pressure. And then if we can get a turnover, then suddenly we're the guys who are pushing for a score. You got Nash on the right wing. You know, he took his try well last week. He was busy too. Again, I want to see him, you know, getting more touches of the ball this week, and really just coming in there and starting to feel at home at Six Nations and Test level. Then you got Keenan at fullback. Such, you know, a rock in this team, and just to have him there. And then Lowe on the left, just to kind of help Nash out as well. I think that's a decent call there. On to the Ireland bench then. So you got Kelleher as the replacement hooker. Again, I can kind of understand why he's there rather than, you know, rather than Stewart. But still, you know, it would have been maybe nice to see, to maybe, you know, rest one of the Leinster prop, or sorry, Tucker's not props, Leinster props for this one. But again, I think Kelleher still needs a little bit more time, because he's another player who's, you know, a lot of actually our hookers have been kind of in and out with injuries and not having runs of games. So it'd be nice to see him get some more minutes. Jeremy Loughman there, definitely worth his place on the bench, and I'm expecting, you know, to see some, you know, decent impact from him when he comes on. And then Tom O'Toole, this guy is, you know, last year he was our best carrying prop by a long way, and that was off the bench. So I'm expecting him again this year to have real impact coming on. And, you know, I've got a sneaky feeling he's going to get over for a try as well in this one. I don't know why. It just literally just popped in my head, right, that this guy's going to score a try. So let's see if that's true or not. I don't know what the odds are. I'm not a betting person, and even if, like, I had a couple of quid to spare, I don't think I'd bet on him scoring. But something just says to me this guy is going to score, and I don't know why. I can't explain it. Then we have Henderson there. So, you know, he's, you know, with now that McCarthy has come on the scene. He's kind of dropped a little bit down the pecking order, but he's still such a good player, and we know he can give us, you know, and it's a really strong bench. Just looking at the totality of it, but you know, he's one of the ones that makes it a strong bench. He's got tons of experience, and you know, he can do the hard carries. He's good at, like, you know, attacking maul and maul defense as well, and he's really, I think, going to lift things when he comes on. We've got Van der Fleer there as well on the bench to come on, which kind of makes sense. You know, we needed to retain one of the kind of starting back row that dropped down, and then, you know, obviously Peter O'Mahony is getting a rest in this one. Then Gibson Park there on the bench. What I hope is that Gibson Park comes on and gets about maybe 20 minutes with Crowley. So maybe if he comes on with, you know, maybe like half an hour to go. So Casey will get his 50 minutes. Gibson Park will come on for maybe the last 30 minutes, and maybe Byrne can get a go at 10 for the last 10 minutes or so. But we'll see how it's going, because if Italy are putting us under pressure, you know, we might see Gibson Park earlier, and we might not see Byrne at all. Then we've got Larmour there at 23. So, you know, no Frawley in the squad either for this, and I thought this would have been a great one to give him a run out. But then, you know, you look at the squad and there's so many players that need time as well. So Larmour, he's another one of those who can cover a number of positions, and you know, we know he's going to be elusive when he's on the pitch. Like, if we got him and Capuozzo on the pitch, like, people are just going to be falling over left, right and centre as the two of them tie you know, players on both teams in knots. So it's going to be nice to see him getting on. I talked about it when we talked about Leinster, that I'd like to see him be a little bit greedier in terms of, you know, his desire to score tries, rather than he seems to just love, you know, getting through gaps, beating players, etc. That's where it feels, at least, the excitement for him from playing at this level comes from, rather than getting over, you know, getting over the line and splashing down for a try. So I'd love to see him, another one as well, maybe getting a try or two in this game. So that is the Ireland team. Now let's have a close look at the Italian team. So we've got Danilo Fischetti there at loose head. You know, for my money, he is the best Italian front rower at the moment. Had an excellent you know, breakthrough Six Nations last year, and just hoping that he improves this year as well, and doesn't have kind of that second season syndrome. But he did a decent game against England, and I'm expecting him to go well in this one too. You know, he's one of those players that even in, you know, if they do lose, even in a losing side, he can look good, because he just does what he does, you know, his own job, as it were, so well. Got Lucchesi there beside him as well at hooker. So he's a guy, you know, I think for Italy, I think Fischetti, you would say he's nailed on. If he's fit, he's absolutely starting at loose head. Then, you know, for between Lucchesi and Nicotera, it's a bit closer, I think, in terms of who's going to be the starting hooker for the, you know, beyond the Six Nations. I think these two will kind of swap in and out of the team, but at the moment, Lucchesi is there. He's got a chance now to shine against Ireland, and you know, he's had a decent season up to now, you know, and he's one of those where, if Italy get up a little bit, he's one that can drive them on as well, with his own performance. Then we got Cesarelli at tight head. I still think that, you know, tight head for Italy is one of the kind of open positions. I don't think they've settled on who their tight head is going to be long term, and you know, he's got the chance to claim that jersey as his own. Second row, it's nice to see you know, Canone and Ruzza there. this week, and hoping that kind of stays as a kind of a settled combination in the second row, because there's a lot of chopping and changing last year and a lot of decent players coming in and out of the team, but it's the problem of coming in and out of the team, right, that you don't really have a settled second row, and that obviously affects your set piece, your maul, etc. So having these two guys playing together, at test level for as many games together, I think, as possible, would be good. Then we've got Isakor coming in. So he's a guy that can really, kind of show the Six Nations what he's about. He's one, he's going to want to announce himself in this game. And I think we will see some really bright moments from him in the game. Obviously, as an Irish fan, I'm hoping it's not too many bright moments, but I think he is a guy who could potentially have an impact. Zuliani, we see a lot with Italy that when there are changes made in the back row, he's normally the first player in, and it's the same here. I think he would have been they just last week's I thought last week's back row would have been kind of Italy's best, and then Zuliani is the guy that kind of has that question mark over that, like whether if you have him in there, whether you're going to have a better, more balanced unit. So it's not quite fair comparison this week, I think, because first of all, Isakor is in there, so it means that he's not quite going to be in exactly the same back row as we had last week, and also excuse me, the opposition, the level of the opposition is that little bit higher as well. But he's a guy that, in another one who, when their tails are up, this guy is really going to deliver for his team. Then you got Michel Lamoureux. I really admire him as a captain, as a player, and just as a person as well. And he's one of those people that in life you want to see him doing well. And again, don't want to see him doing that well on Sunday. But it's a decent pack. I think if they can get a couple of things going their way early on, they can really stand toe to toe with the Ireland pack. It's when things start going against them, whether they're going to wilt or whether they're going to be able to stand up in those moments is kind of the question mark there. And that could be the difference, in terms of, it's going to be they're going to be tough spells for Ireland, and then if they can kind of cause those moments of weakness, and exploit them, then that's probably where the margin is going to come from in the final score. Then we've got halfbacks. You've got Stephen Barney there and Paolo Garbisi. So I thought the two Garbisis would have been staying there. It was a combination at 9. Varney is another one, like 9 for Italy. Definitely is not settled, and but I thought that last week the two Garbisis went well together, but Varney could come in and play well too. So let's see how that goes. But I think now Paolo Garbisi does seem to be the starting 10, and then Tommaso Allen just seems to be more of a utility player, kind of filling gaps and plugging holes for the team. So if Caseta has decided that Garbisi is his 10, that's a good thing. I think that you've got one kind of anchor in your team that you can build the rest around. Then talking about anchors on the left wing, Monty Ioane, he's got to be on this team every time he's available and fit. Being available and fit are two of the problems. Obviously last year he wasn't available at all for the whole Six Nations because he had commitments in the Southern Hemisphere. And then there's obviously also that chance of picking up an injury. Centres then, Menoncello and Brex, these two, forming a decent combination there. And, going against that Ireland centre pairing as well, we talked about how Henshaw and McCluskey have kind of similar games, not exactly the same, but similar games. I think with Menoncello and Brex, there are some similarities there as well, but Brex is more is the guy that really has the offloading game. He's one of the best offloaders in the world, as far as I can see at test level, and that's that little bit extra that he brings. But I think as a centre combination, I'm liking the look of these two guys, and again I hope that they have more time together. Pani, another start for him on the right wing, and maybe now he's going to be trusted to be in the team a bit more and not kind of yo-yoing in and out of the team. That's very hard for a player. I think that you're starting one week and then you especially when you're a winger, you could be starting one week and then out of the matchday squad completely the next week, because maybe if you can't properly cover fullbacks or fullback or centre, then you're not going to be the first choice to be on the bench. Then we got Ange Capuozzo, such an exciting player, and players like him are the ones that are going to bring kind of the casual fans to see Italy, and then they're going to stay for the rest of the players in the team as well, and just the spirit and heart of the team. But it's important to have players like him that not just light up the Italian team, but they light up the tournament as well. And he's had a bit of a tough time with injury, and doesn't seem to be able to get a run of games under his belt since having that breakthrough through season when he won World Young Player of the Year. But I hope that he does stay fit, and that we can see the best of him on Sunday, but hopefully scoring a consolation try or something like that, not scoring a winning try. Onto the bench then. So we got Nicotero there. So we talked about him in terms of himself and Lucchesi, that it's kind of touch and go for who is the starter. He's definitely going to have huge impact from the bench. Spagnolo and Zolochi, these two a little bit less experienced, and for them, I think it's about getting the minutes on there, and just a lot of time with players like this, the first few caps in this competition can be just a case of getting them used to the way Six Nations work, etc. But for these guys that aren't starters in the team, I think it's important to give them enough minutes as well. Then we have Zambonin covering the second row as he did last week. We've got Vincent there as well. Decent option off the bench, and Page Rello or Relo. I never can pronounce. There's a lot of players who I'll hear the name in commentary, and the way the guy pronounced it just makes absolute sense, and then I read the name, and then I don't hear the commentary voice anymore, and I get it wrong. But another guy who it's good to see these guys in the squad, because it means that there's more competition within that squad now. They've a bigger and deeper pool of players, and as time goes by, that's just going to increase. Then we've got Tommaso Allen, who, as I said, it looks like he is the utility player, because for me, if you definitely wanted him in your team, then you play him at full back and you move Capuozzo to the right wing. But I think Capuozzo is probably more dangerous from full back, and Tommaso Allen can give you options off the bench, so it's a decent call there. And then you got Mori there, who might actually, we've seen him in the centres previously, so might see him come on in the centres, but we'll have to see. A lot of time the 23 shirt kind of injury dictates where you're going to come on. So that is the Italian team. We talked about at the start of the video, whether I thought that Italy were going to win the game. So honestly, I have to say it's very unlikely, but there's still a chance. Okay, because it doesn't take you think in terms of Ireland, one of the best teams in the world, right? And Italy, obviously an improving side, but still not anywhere near that level. But it doesn't take that much right? It just takes Italy to improve by a little bit, 10% or so, and Ireland to drop off by 10 or 15%, and suddenly the two teams are much closer than you'd maybe expect, kind of on their, both at their kind of peak, and then after that, then it's just about belief. You get ahead, you get a couple of decisions going your way, you frustrate Ireland, and you make them kind of start giving away penalties and let you stretch that lead. And that's the thing, like, that Italy didn't do against England, is when they got ahead, they didn't stretch the lead. The way that Ford was plugging away with those penalties, 5 penalties in the game, Italy needed something like that as well. They needed to be responding with penalties of their own and just kind of keeping them at arm's length, and then maybe getting like a double score in that second half where they can just pull away, but instead it was England that came back over the top of them. And that's something that if they were in this position against Ireland, what you got to do when it's a team where a lot of people are thinking that you've got no hope against, but you get into a bit of a lead, it's that second half, and especially that final quarter of the game, where you've got to be scoring points. Okay, because a lot of time with even Ireland, and a lot of these players actually playing for Ireland, where they were in, like, especially against games against the All Blacks or wherever, where we were maybe a little bit ahead, and going for like our first win or whatever, so not in the distant past. Like, you have to remember, it's not that too long ago that we beat them for the first time. That was our problem, and I see it a lot in teams that aren't used to kind of beating what are considered the bigger teams in them, is that the start is good, to get out ahead, they maybe even in the second half to get a try or something, but then coming into that last 30 minutes or so, they freeze up, and suddenly the scoring dries up, and the opposition are just pegging, chipping away, and then they get ahead, and then suddenly now you've got to go and get a score, and it's very hard then to switch, turn on that tap again and rediscover what you had earlier in the game. And a lot of the time what happens is, instead you try and force that to come out, intercept, try, and the scoreline has a bit of gloss on it. And that's potentially what's going to happen on Sunday. Also potential for Ireland to really hit the ground running, get a bit of a lead going, and then have kind of maybe a sticky middle part where Italy get a few scores, but they're not quite coming out as a threat, and then Ireland maybe trade scores with them towards the end of the game, so that for most of the game Ireland are looking comfortable on the scoreboard, if not necessarily on the field. And I think that's probably more likely in this one, is that Ireland will win. They won last year by 14 points. It's probably going to be somewhere in that margin this time. It could obviously be a little bit lower, a little bit higher, but I don't think, and there's obviously the chance with Ireland that it could be a big score. But I feel like Italy, I've seen, what I've seen from them, that they have the ability to, it sounds very disrespectful to say to keep the score down, but I think they're going to keep close to Ireland, but not necessarily threatening to win the game. And then, coming out of that, then I think Italy will gain confidence. Ireland will see some areas where we need to improve if we are to go on and actually claim back-to-back Grand Slams, which just still sounds crazy. We're only on round 2, so I'm just mentioning that because it's something that is a possibility. But I think Ireland are going to win this one, and they're going to be, I think, again, on the scoreboard, comfortable, but I think there are going to be times when we struggle and when Italy are on top, and that's going to be good for Ireland in terms of, you know, learning about some of the young players that are in there and how they cope with situations like that and how they kind of dig themselves out. But I think it's going to be an entertaining game. I don't think it's going to be, you know, the massive party, huge score that probably a lot of Ireland fans are hoping for. But I'd love to be wrong about that. I'd love to see again, I try to be as neutral as I can with stuff like this, but obviously if you're an Ireland fan, you're an Ireland fan. Put my Ireland fan hat on, I always want to see Ireland score as many points as they can in a game. But putting my rugby fan hat back on, I always want to see, you know, entertaining rugby, but also, you know, competitive rugby. I don't like to see one team getting absolutely battered, and I hope that doesn't happen to Italy, because they don't deserve that. And I hope it doesn't happen to Ireland either, because we don't deserve it either. But that is the end of this one. So I'm plugging for an Ireland win. I don't think you're going to be too surprised about that. We're going to be doing reviews of the other games. You know, as I said, I've got a bit of a cold coming on, so I'm hoping that my throat and my voice hold out for the weekend. I've also got you know, a few other things on over the weekend too, where I'm going to be using my voice for that too. So it means there's going to be no resting in between videos or anything like that. But whatever it is, you know, if I have to croak it all out, that's what I'll do. I'll still make sure that I make the videos. I think it's, you know, it's exciting, another exciting weekend of rugby ahead of us, and, you know, long may it continue is what I say.